Hey, you're here with Dr. Jodi, and this is season 3 of Anxiety, I'm So Done With You. This podcast is a teen and a young adult guide to ditching toxic stress and hardwiring your brain for happiness. If you're new here, grab a copy of my book, Anxiety, I'm So Done With You, because this series goes section by section through the book, going a little bit deeper, giving more examples, and telling more stories. Season 3, which goes along with Chapter 3, is expanding hope by looking at your skills and abilities. You are amazing. You have many skills and abilities. However, anxiety does not want you to know that, and it tries to block your view of them. But not anymore. In this season, we're going to bring them out into the open, giving you more access to them when you need them the most. And as this season progresses, you're going to envision yourself in a new way. As a person who is able, caring, confident, and determined. Thank you so much for listening, subscribing, and leaving me 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Mental health problems are skyrocketing, especially among young people, and this series will help them cease judging, stop questioning, and start healing. Welcome to Chapter 3, Section 4, Activate Responsibility. In this episode, I'm going to discuss how responsibility leads to freedom. I'm going to tell you how it leads to a positive self-view too, how it's energizing and invigorating, and then how to think of yourself in a power role when approaching any task. And lastly, I'm going to tell you how to negotiate for what you want. Before we dive into all that, don't forget that I go live every Monday on YouTube. You'll find me on YouTube and TikTok at Dr. Jodi, DoctorJodi. Okay, I understand that the word responsibility has a bad rap, especially for teenagers, and that's because you're trying to individuate and become your own person during this time. Developmentally, you are supposed to rebel as you move along this process of individuating. And I find it really interesting about the word individuate because it doesn't mean be on your own or be an individual single person. It comes from the word indivisible, undivided. That means as you grow into adulthood, you are realizing that you are a part of a whole. It's so convoluted that the word that means indivisible has the connotation of a person being on their own. It's supposed to be a person being a member of a whole community and connected to that community, or even beyond community, connected to the area and the energy field and the land. As in being one with all of that. And as you travel your life path from kid to adult, you are transitioning to this new identity, the adult you. In many older societies, older than Western culture, cultures that still connect with the land and are more communal, there are rituals called rites of passage rituals that young people go through to mark this transition into adulthood and into their community. In these ceremonies, they accept responsibility of adulthood and they take their position in their community. I really think there's a big hole missing in Western culture because young people don't have these, because psychologically it helps them get through this time. There was an anthropologist named Arnold van Gennep, and an anthropologist is someone who studies human culture and humanity. And he studied rites of passage rituals from all around the world and through history. And he suggested, or he noticed, that all rites of passage rituals follow the same 3-stage process. The first stage is when you're changed from something that you were to something new or something different, and it's called separation. This is when you leave, quote, childhood, and you leave that identity that you're a child and start to transition into adulthood. That's separation. In the second stage, you remove yourself from society temporarily because you're in a period of transition, and this is called liminality. Sometimes I refer to this as the caterpillar's cocoon. The third stage is when you re-enter society as a new person, and this is called incorporation. So in adolescence, you are going through this process, And if your family doesn't have a cultural ritual for this, you will have to feel your way through this process on your own. In the second stage, that liminal space is this betwixt and between place where you pull back from your parents and you're in your head a lot. You're trying to figure out who you are and what your position is. And in the ancient cultures, you might have been in the forest on a vision quest or something, but you had a guide for this time. Like the medicine person from the community or some spiritual elder guided you through this process. As a young adult, you are going through this liminal time. You might be feeling like you're in caterpillar soup as you're releasing that caterpillar body and growing the new body with beautiful, beautiful wings. If you're here in this liminal space, I tell you, it is easier if you have one or some adults in your life that you could trust. So if you don't, see if you could get some. There are trusting adults somewhere, hopefully in your periphery. Find them and let them help you a little bit. The role of this adult or these adults is to show you that adulthood isn't that bad. And the responsibility that comes with it is freeing and connecting. Plus, it gives you a sense of purpose and position in the community, which gives you belonging and lifelong happiness. Studies from all over the world relate purpose to living longer and living happier. We're going to talk about that more in chapter 5, but just so you know, a sense of purpose gives you a reason to live. It gives you a feeling of worthiness, and you need it. And people without a sense of purpose feel lost and untethered. Okay, so how does responsibility equal freedom? Think about your life. And in particular, think about a time when you are around well-functioning adults. It is sad that I have to say that, but I know a lot of you listening to this might have adults in your life that are not functioning that well. But there should be some good adults somewhere. Aunts or uncles or somebody at school or a neighbor or one of your friends' parents. Think about being around them. And then think about if you help them or if you're polite or if you do something kind. They just want to give you things. They recognize you and are so happy that you're doing those things that they love to give you whatever they can give you. That is how well-functioning adults act around kids who are responsible. I don't mean that they give you everything that you want. That's not actually well-functioning to give someone everything that they want. But they want to give you things. When they see your responsibility, they want to give you rewards and they want to give you privileges. And those rewards and privileges equal freedom to do the things that you couldn't do if you didn't earn it. People who have rewards and privileges without them being earned usually don't appreciate them in the same way as people who earn them. It's not universal. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they could recognize and appreciate it. But people who earn privilege through their behavior, and by behavior, I mean kindness and actions, and by actions, I mean responsibility, like they're conscientious and ethical and do what they say they're going to do. Those people are usually nicer people to hang out with. They feel more grounded and comfortable with themselves, and because they're comfortable with themselves, they treat other people around them better. The amount of responsibility that you embody is relative to the freedom that you get. There's a relationship, but not a guarantee, because our world is a very unfair place. There is tons of injustice in the world and people who are marginalized by our society and discriminated against by other people. And then there's bullies and criminals and accidents also that affect freedom. But in general, responsibility is related to freedom. I want you to think about responsibility as low risk and high reward because it's absolutely worth the effort. For example, if you showed responsibility at a job, you'd get promoted faster and earn more money. Responsibility won't only earn you rewards and privileges. It'll also make you feel good about yourself. You'll feel accomplished. You'll feel relieved when the task is off your plate. You will feel good that you helped someone. And if you had a challenge when doing that task, you will feel good for overcoming that challenge. And then not being responsible makes you feel bad about yourself. You may not think you care about being responsible, but often under the surface, there is shame and guilt about it. And then you have to overcompensate to convince yourself that you don't care. That guilt and shame eat you up inside anyway, even if you deny them. Plus, being irresponsible hurts relationships. It gets you into fights and conflicts with other people. It makes you put walls up, keeping people away from you. It makes you not trust yourself and not trust other people, and so you stop connecting with people. Responsibility, though, connects you to people. It gives you a sense of belonging. People need you and you need them, and they help you and you help them. For example, when you participate in your family jobs, you are part of helping your house run. And even if you don't consciously care about that, your brain feels settled there. It feels safe that you belong to a group. Another benefit is that managing and completing tasks robustifies your prefrontal cortex. And I know I just made up a word, robustify, but I have not found another word that really portrays the same meaning, how to make it fuller and richer and more invigorated. Anytime you build up your prefrontal cortex, your anxiety and depression go down. I was recently listening to a news segment with Sanjay Gupta, which I'll link to in the blog post that goes with this episode. He was referring to some studies of the teenage brain where they took MRIs before and during the COVID pandemic. On those scans, they found an overall shrinkage of the prefrontal cortex, which they attributed to the lack of activity and social isolation of the lockdowns. When the prefrontal cortex is understimulated, anxiety and depression go up. Remember, the prefrontal cortex is the mammalian brain who overrides any false beliefs the anxiety is telling you. That means the more robust it is, the less power anxiety has. The prefrontal cortex is the executive functioning of the brain, where you make meaning and you make decisions and you recognize your agency and authority. This means that post-pandemic, your prefrontal cortex is in desperate need of stimulation to bring it back up. The ways that you robustify the prefrontal cortex is by problem solving, by challenging yourself, by learning new things, and by being creative. Responsibility makes you feel better. I know anxiety and depression want you to pull away and it has you too tired to do any tasks. That not only keeps anxiety and depression in your life, but it makes them worse. Don't listen to the anxiety and depression. They do not have your best interest at heart. Do something little. Even when you're exhausted, even when the anxiety just wants you to pay attention to the anxiety, do something little. Even if it's clean out one drawer. That might be all you could do if you're exhausted, but try that one little task. Then celebrate it. Look at it. See how good it looks all organized so you can feel good about it. That's what we spoke about in the last episode, celebrating anything that you do. This will feed you energy for the very next task. And then you get more energy to do the next task. And then you use the energy that you get from that task to do the next task and the next task and the next task. When you are unmotivated, you are an object at rest, and you have to slowly transform yourself to an object in motion with your prefrontal cortex, that mammalian brain, making you engage in the first small task. You can't go from 0 to 100. You have to accelerate slowly. Luckily, once you are in motion, the inertia carries you there, and it is much less effort to stay active. And the other thing about responsibility is, remember, you see yourself reflected off the people around you. So when they see you as responsible and affirm and acknowledge that, you feel really good about yourself. That acknowledgement and that acceptance, that appreciation, or being noticed, it lifts you up. It energizes and invigorates you as well. Without positive feedback like this, you start to feel shriveled up and you stop having your dopamine release. And then you stop caring about anything. You feel increasingly exhausted. I'm so tired all the time. Why am I so tired all the time? And also, when you're in that state, you feel like a victim of everything that somebody asks you. The requests they make feel like demands and obligations. You feel powerless and out of control. And so what do? You protest those things. But the protest is a lot of effort, and there is no rewards or privileges for that kind of protest. You don't win anything here. You just stay suffering. Instead, I want you to think about responsibility as you being in a power role. You are choosing to do anything that you do. everything is a choice, even if it doesn't feel like a choice because you don't want to get in trouble. But think about it. It is you choosing not to get in trouble. So if you feel empowered that is your choice, it will feel totally different to do that thing. This is a mindset switch because it's always your choice. You just have to see it that way. Sometimes doing the task is much less energy than protesting it. And also you get the benefits from doing it. If responsibility gives you freedom, then responsibility gives you power. Tasks will seem so much easier, and they will take so much less energy to get started because you're not fighting yourself so much. And as you get used to doing things, your calorie conserving resistance will decrease because your brain will get used to doing that task and it will stop protesting. It'll see that task as easier and worth it. Life is so much easier when we don't protest the little actions that we need to do to manage our life. When you're used to doing them, not only do they get easier, but you will get more opportunities in life and be able to handle it when bigger challenges come your way. Before we close this episode, let's talk about negotiation. Negotiation is a great skill for anyone to have. The world works in cause and effect in exchanges, like giving and taking. Everyone has needs and wants and also things to offer to others. You have needs and wants, and you have things to offer to others. We're social beings, and we can't do everything that we have to do in our life alone. We can barely do a small portion of the things that we have to do in our life alone. We need other people, and other people need us. Therefore, you have to learn how to negotiate for those needs and your expectations in all of your relationships. When you were a child, people met your needs without you having to ask. But now that you're getting into adulthood in this liminal space, you have some opinions about what you want and how you want things. So you have to start learning how to negotiate to get those things that you want. What's important to know about negotiating is that it's a two-way street. You have to give something in negotiation. You're older now and can be responsible, so you have to do your part to give what the other person needs, to get what you need. And sometimes it's merely acting responsible. For example, you have to clean your room before going out, or you have to do some extra chores to earn a few bucks. Here's a hot tip about negotiating. If you know the other person well, then you know what they want, and this will help you know what you can offer them. Offer something first, something that you would absolutely do before making your request. And remember, if you offer something that you promised before and you didn't do that, it's not going to work. If you don't have trust built up already, then you'll have to do something that you said you'd do before you get what you want. Expect that, because you have to build trust before that kind of negotiation works. If you're saying, I'll do this if you do this for me, they have to count on you that you're going to do that thing. And if they can't count on you, you got to do your thing first to earn what you want. That's where the responsibility comes in. When you're responsible, you get negotiation power. That means you have the power to ask for more things with less things that you have to offer because they trust you already. I'm going to link to more negotiation tactics in the blog post that goes along with this episode because this skill will help you so much in life. You use it in every single relationship, friends, romantic partners, kids, and in every career. No matter what you do, having a good understanding and skills in negotiation will be good for you. The link to the blog post is in the show notes. Well, I think that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this whole process. In this episode, I talked about responsibility leading to freedom. And I also talked about how it gives you a positive self-view, how it's energizing and invigorating. And I told you how to think of yourself in a power role when approaching any task. And then we talked about negotiating for what you want. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening and commenting and leaving me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. If I've helped you at all, share this book and podcast series because you never know who is struggling around you and you might make a huge difference in their lives. The next episode is Chapter 3, Section 5, Activate Confidence. Read or listen to that section and I'll meet you there.